Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. Bulabinaka, I'm your host, and today we are talking about the Water Authority of Fiji, issues concerning water supply, and all the upgrades that are going on, and all the projects that the Water Authority of Fiji has going on around the country. In studio with us, we have the Chief Executive of the Water Authority of Fiji, Mr. Petaya Ravai. Mr. Ravai, let's get right into it. Thank you for coming in to Speak Your Mind, to talk about what's going on in your organization. Firstly, one of the main priorities when you took up the position a few years ago was the state of the water supply system and the urgent upgrades that were needed. What's the status with these upgrades right now?
The status, now, the last 3 years were mainly focused on fixing existing problems. We had a whole lot of misinformation and missing information. We had to have a full knowledge of our network and the state they were in. So in the last 3 years, we took over infrastructure that was neglected. The maintenance was pretty poor. And like I said, information regarding our assets, they were pretty much weak. So while fixing the existing problems in the last few years and trying to upgrade pipes, there was also a need to upgrade our information systems. We need to know what assets are on the ground. And we are well onto that journey right now. We almost completed the major systems in capturing of our assets and a system, what we call the GIS, or the Geographic Information System. And from that, we have developed also with information from various agencies like the Bureau of Stats, the development agencies, the tourism industry. We now have developed master plans for the next 20 years. And I think one of the problems in the past was that the master plan that was developed was not monitored and not a lot of things were not implemented. So most of the problems we are facing now was due to the lack of implementation on key components of the master plan that was developed way back in the 90s. So we have reviewed that master plan, and we have now constructed the master plans for the major urban centers. So we've fixed a lot of issues. We've now identified really what assets need to be upgraded, our production levels at our treatment plants, and also the capacity building issue required at Water Authority of Fiji. We need to build a good critical mass of engineers to be sustainable, to manage these systems going forward. So in terms of your question, we are pretty much onto it, and we are hopeful in the next couple of years a lot of things will start to fall in place in terms of the better management of the huge infrastructure network that we have in Fiji.
Mm-hmm. Now that you've been able to sort of gauge the amount of assets you have, as you mentioned, and the GIS, what sort of mass are we looking at? I mean, what exactly do you have under the Water Authority of Fiji?
Yes, there's a lot of work to be done. We have a lot of AC pipes, or asbestos cement pipes that needs to be replaced. These have been laid a long time ago. Some of the pumps, have been operating faithfully for the last 40 years, but they need to be replaced. So we've identified all this, and it's going to cost a fair bit of money. But the time to act is now. We need to invest in the replacement of this infrastructure and putting in place systems now to manage this infrastructure going forward, so that there's a programmed schedule of replacement and good maintenance. We don't want to wait for a system to break before we repair it. If we have proper maintenance, and we can only have that if the systems coming into and telling us what the status of the system is, then only we can do preventative maintenance and progressive replacement programs. So we've identified there's a lot of work to be done. In some areas, we are at a very critical stage. For example, the Nandi-Lotoka corridor, there's huge development plans. Just talking to the agencies, the housing authorities, the Department of Town and Country Planning, the tourism industry. If we don't, fix the current system in Nandi and put in some very key upgrades, we'll really be struggling in the next 3 years. So, this has come out of the master plan. So now we have like a blueprint that this is where we need to take the water system to, and what we need to fix with in relation to the information that we've gathered from all the agencies, the population growth, etc. So we now have identified it. It's now the onus is now on us, and of course the powers that be to put in the capital to fix these problems.
Funding is always an issue with these sort of capital projects. But just to pick on something you mentioned, you have a master plan. When there are water cuts, as announced by your office, is it that you identify one problem, fix it, and another one pops up? Or is it that this is part of the master plan that you mentioned where you have to carry out periodic upgrades? Is that what's going on, or are the systems failing one by one?
Yeah, but both are happening. Sometimes it's the system fails, so we need to shut down and repair it. That's when some shutdowns have to happen due to these bursts or breakdown in the infrastructure. But there are also planned shutdowns when we there's a project being done. We lay the pipes. Now we need to connect it to a live system. We need to turn off that live system temporarily before we do the connection. That's when we have the planned shutdowns. And I think one is happening this week in the Renovesi. And we will let out the information soon to the public and the hours that they will be off before we make this critical connection at the Renovesi Bridge. So yes, there are two types. One is the things break down, we go to fix it, but to fix it we have to turn it, see the things off. And the other one is there's a project being done. Before we commission the project, we need to turn off the live system to connect our pipes or whatever we need to do. So yes, they're both types of water cuts or water disruptions.
A while back, quite a few years back, when there were these water cuts, consumers would be very frustrated. There was very little understanding of what was going on and what the then PWD or those in charge of water supply were trying to do, or what was being done on the ground, and people would become frustrated every time there was a water cut.
Yep.
Do you feel that the water authority has been able to reach out more? Do you still get complaints, or are your consumers more understanding when there is a water cut? What sort of responses are you seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing an improvement in that area. The frustration comes about when people are not informed. So if we inform them well in advance before shutdown happens, obviously some shutdowns we do not predict. But when it happens, we do make full use of the radio or the print media, or now you have these advertising screens around the place. We utilize that as well for major shutdowns to advertise and inform the people there's going to be a shutdown. So the frustration comes out of lack of awareness. We like to think that any shutdown that we know of is going to happen, we ensure that the public is informed. Obviously, some of them don't listen to the radio or may not listen to that particular time when the radio announcements are on. We have things like our website, the Facebook, that we also inform the social media about. So yes, the message is getting out there. We have now on rare occasions people tell us that they have not been informed. But most of our customers are now not only fully informed, but they understand why we need to do some of these disruptions. Short-term disruption for long-term sustainability of our systems.
All right. On that note, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back talking to Mr. Petai Aravai from the Water Authority of Fiji. Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. Welcome back. We're talking to Petai Aravai, the Chief Executive for the Water Authority of Fiji. Mr. Aravai, before the break, we were basically talking about how the Water Authority has been catching up with the system, affecting repairs and trying to improve supply. Now, that's a large part of what your organization does, but there is also an overall picture because you're now pretty much operating as a commercial entity, as a business. It requires more from you and your organization and your staff. So what is the overall focus at the Water Authority right now?
Well, the overall focus is all our customers are to get 24/7 supply. At the moment, there are 67 intermittent supply areas around 36,000 people who do not enjoy this service in terms of 24/7. Now, when I say 67 intermittent supply areas, these are further categorized. Some of these areas, they only get supply 4 hours a day, some as much as 18 hours a day, but still not 24/7. Right now, that's one of our key focuses. If you are our customer, you got a water meter, you're paying your bills, we are committed to supplying water to you 24/7 with good pressures, not drips and drabs. Or drops, of water that's not sufficient to even operate a washing machine, things like that. So that's our commitment right now, to eliminate all intermittent supply areas. And that's going to be a very challenging exercise. But, we are progressing well. There's some areas now in the west, like Nawai-Domba, that was, pipes were laid there a few years back and meters were installed, but no water could be supplied to them. It went for a few days, and then due to the demand and the hydraulics design, it couldn't reach them. So we have now, put in booster pumps, and we will continue to monitor that area. And people are now getting water supply for the first time in years. There's areas in the towards Mba from Lotoka in Buambua, where they've never had a consistent supply. They were always, we used to cut water almost every day to these areas of Watamai and Vaibai. We are now, some areas now from 0 hours to 4 hours water supply, right up to now, 18 hours water supply in a day. We still want to move them up to 24/7. That's the main challenge right now for us. First of all, getting our existing customers 24/7, and then we'll start to increase coverage. Some of the rural areas around the towns and cities, which are classed as rural perhaps right now, if we have enough water and good hydraulic design, good pressures, we can start to extend the services to them and bring them into the network rather than them having a borehole system or maybe an unreliable water source that they are relying on.
These intermittent areas that you spoke of, what's the challenge? Is it the geography of the area? Is it that they're too remote, or what exactly is the?
Yes, looking back now, at some places, we were just wondering whoever decided to put pipes here when it was hydraulically impossible. Maybe somebody just put it there for the sake of answering a few questions or just trying to please somebody. But hydraulically, looking at it, it doesn't make sense. The design, and also looking at the production at the treatment plant, they wouldn't have been able to cater for this extension of the coverage. So we are now trying to fix that. The pipes are already there. The customers expect us to provide water. So we're putting things like pumps. We're trying to increase the production level at the treatment plants. And most of it is really, poor design. Poor design that we're trying to fix now. But, even though we are challenged by it, we are now, we've got in-house capacity now to do things like water modeling, which was never in the water supply before. We used to rely a lot on consultants to come and do water models for us to simulate what's on the ground. Now we have built this capacity in-house now. So from that we can say, what is not going to reach that place based on the current levels of pressures and the service the production. We need to do this. Okay, let's test it out in the model. Okay, it works. All right, now let's go and do it. Those kind of scientific analysis is required to fix the intermittent supply risk, because we don't want a situation where, okay, we fix this intermittent supply area, but we create another one, right? Because we've pushed water from here to there. In the past, this was done ad hoc, Okay, let's turn a few valves, put water there, satisfy them for a few days, and then switch it off again, move it to this area. This is what we don't want, We want a system where, it's a holistic.
That was happening?
That was happening, yeah, big time. Valves were being operated just to, please a few people, and then after that they were switched off. Then service was diverted to another area. What we want, a holistic picture of the whole system, and then, we control it, how the water flows and this information, and vice versa. We are now putting in place what we call our SCADA network, where the key components of the network is sending information back to our control center, and then we know, and systems are in problem before the customer knows. We should know, and then we're going to fix it.
It sounds very high tech. For these sort of areas, which you now say weren't properly planned or they should never have been water pipes because of the hydraulic or
Yeah.
hydrology issues, are you still looking at the option of getting piped water there, or should it have been some other option? What other option would it be?
No, we will. We are committed to getting water there. I've told my engineers, get it there. Whether you put a pump in place or increase production, the pipes are there. Get it. The customer expects it. So, it could be a challenge in the engineering aspects of things, but at the end of the day, when you lay a pipe in a suburb or in a community, you must get water there. While we are challenged in many areas because of the geographic landscape of the area and how far it is from the system, not enough pressures there. There are engineering solutions. It's going to cost money. Not only in the initial investment but ongoing electricity charges. For example, now we'll have to put in a pump, but we have to do it. And in terms of water supply, cost should not be the only consideration. First of all, get the water to the people. That cost issue should not be the main focus of discussion.
Water is a basic need, and lots to talk about. But right now, it's time to take another quick break. Call FM Speak Your Mind, talking to Mr. Opetaya Ravai from the Water Authority of Fiji. Lots of interesting points coming out, a lot of progress being made on water supply, upgrading the system, and increasing supply to every Fijian that's connected to the Water Authority network. Mr. Ravai, just carrying on with the discussion, there's a lot that your department, your men and women are doing to ensure that supply is increased or to ensure that everybody on the network gets supply. Over the years, how have the demands of consumers changed in terms of water use?
Yes, it demands basically the primary factor to consider the demand calculations is the population. So we look at the population now and the projected population growth. Now, and we get that information from Bureau of Stats. Okay, they tell us the various areas and provinces and the projected population growth in those areas. And subsequently, the demand is calculated, and it's not a complicated calculation. It'll simply tell you that based on the population here and the amount of water you produce, you cannot meet the demand. Right? And plus, of course, you consider things like schools, hotels, and industry. So all these factors are taken into consideration before we calculate water demand, and then we measure that against what we produce. And the water loss, or what we call the non-revenue water, the water that is lost through leaks and other means. Then we can say, okay, we have enough water or we don't. And if we continue at this trend with projected population growth, in 5 years' time, certain people without water because the demand is not met. So that's basically what happens in master planning. Mm-hmm. And like I said, on the master plan that we have just produced, we are looking at some serious issues in some areas like Nandi and Lotoka. If we don't put in the investment now, we need to put it now so that we can meet the projected demand that's in front of us in the next 3 or 5 years.
When you say 3 to 5 years, are you saying that this Nandi Lotoka area is maxed out right now?
Pretty much so. Not only maxed out, some people are without water for certain parts of the day. Yeah? So even the existing supply is not enough. For example, if Momi Bay comes online, then we really need to seriously think of getting another water source for Nandi, which we are planning to do now. Negotiations are already beginning with the landowners and in certain parts of Nandi, but we need to do it now because there are a lot of other similar developments happening in Nandi, and not only that. There's a projected population growth shift from rural Nandi to urban Nandi. And also places, for example, Nawaidhomba and other areas surrounding Nawaidhomba, which were previously rural farming communities, are now wanting to connect to the Nandi system. So that's it's not a population growth, it's basically people who are not on our system are now wanting to connect, so the demand will effectively increase.
Mhm. So I'm interested in the points you've made. Do you have numbers or estimates about the number of consumers you have in that area,
We do.
and the amount of water that you need to supply as compared to what you are supplying?
Yes, we do. We have that, and we know the numbers now, and we basically know what to do to meet the demand in the next few years.
Mhm.
So yes, that's the beauty of the master plan. It tells you exactly what you need to do. You need to increase production to these levels. You need to manage demand. We need to put in this water conservation type of attitude in people as well. So, because if we can drop demand to a certain percentage, then we can have more water to share with other people.
People in Nandi and Lotoka would be panicked that they might be running out of water in the long term, based on the demands that you've projected.
Yeah.
Is there any cause for alarm for consumers?
I don't think it's a matter of panic. I think some people in Nandi and Lotoka, in areas like Kashmir and Transmitter Road and things, people like that, they know they're without water for half of the day. Sometimes for days on end, and we cut water to them. They know the state that we're in at the moment. If we don't do anything about it now, it's only going to get worse, because the people keep coming in to these areas, and if we're not increasing the capacity in our production levels, then obviously the supply cannot meet the demand. Right now, our supply cannot meet the demand in terms of certain areas of Kashmir, and so we're working the best mix of solutions. Looking at the hydraulic design, look at how we can improve the treatment at Nangando and other treatment plants in Lotoka, existing infrastructure, try to optimize that. But at a certain point, it's not going to be producing much more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we need to get in more water from perhaps from the Sambeto River or from other sources around between Nandi and Singatoka. We need to get more water in.
Is it too soon to say which landowners you're talking about and what the...
Yeah, I think I don't want to mention it here, because you're still under consideration some options, and we need to talk to some of these landowners. Obviously, these water sources in catchment areas are in the Matangali land, and we need their endorsement. And we are happy with... from previous experiences, the people around, the landowners around Nandi fully appreciate when it comes to water, because they totally dependent on the tourism industry, and we tell them, without the water, you can't build hotels and you can't grow the tourism industry. So most of the time, it's just a matter of compensation, fair compensation to them, and then we build our reservoirs and our treatment plants or whatever.
What's the other area? Where is the other area of concern? Or
Suvarnasori, definitely. The population in Suvarnasori is just amazing in terms of growth, especially the Nasinu area. That place is fast developing into a city at the moment, with increased number of population. So there are challenges, but the good thing about it is we know now what we need to do. It's a matter of spending and getting it done right now, so that 10 years from now we won't be having the same conversation that people are still suffering from intermittent supply.
All right, and on that note, it's time for another break. Call FM, speak your mind. We're talking to Mr. Pitaya Ravai from the Water Authority of Fiji. Before the break, Mr. Ravai, you were talking about the Suvarnasori corridor, the other area of major growth and major demands. What sort of usage are we looking at? I mean, how many megaliters of water does the Suvarnasori corridor consume?
Well, for per capita, per person, it's about 200 liters a day. That's how the demand, how we measure the demand. And then there are various factors in terms of the hotels and the schools, based on the number of rooms, the hotels, the apartments, and then you have industry, right? Depending on the type of industry, obviously there's the soft drink companies or the breweries and things like that. They would use more. So all these factors are taken into account. We have two main water treatment plants in Waila and Tamabua. and around 150 to 160 megaliters a day is produced to cater for this area, which is not enough. So we really need to not only augment the current system, we need to look at other sources. So we're looking at the Rio River, for example. There's an option to extract water from the Rio River and treat it somewhere to the north of Waila, on the other side of the river, to supply the delta area. That should take out a load of, say, 25 megaliters from the Waila system, which we can then divert to other areas. And of course, there are developments happening in Subanusori, Housing Authority. There's a new, I know there's a Nandawa Bay proposal before the town and country planning. There's a 36-story building here, Albert Park, being proposed. So all of these things will, will demand water.
Well, there's new subdivisions in Nasinu. Waila is the other area that's really
right.
going really
That's right.
growing
Waila
really
City
fast.
has not come on board yet, but we know. There's China City beside Damoda City that they've talked about. Korean City now, near Nakasi, I believe. So there's a whole lot of cities and a whole lot of developments. It's not for us to determine whether it's going to happen or not. We need to be ready and be prepared, we don't want to be an agency who is a stumbling block to development. As an enabler, we need to put the water infrastructure in place, and then that will in turn generate economic development and all the other things that happen.
So when you plan for these things, when you look at all this investment that's coming in and the demands that will be on the water piping network, what sort of upgrades or capital investments are you looking at? I mean, is it just a matter of installing some additional pipes?
No, it's not just pipes. We need to increase the capacities of our water treatment plants. In some instances, we need to build perhaps more intakes, or even a dam. And right now, there's a feasibility study being undertaken for the Sovi Basin. That dam will resolve a lot of water supply issues in the Subanusori corridor, maybe stretch right as far as Navua, and also potential for power generation. So it's a good thing to have a dam. The only, the considerations, that's why we're having the feasibility study to consider all the stakeholders involved, the landowners, the national heritage, and all the factors, so that whatever report is going to be produced late in the year will encompass all of these interests and suggest to build or otherwise the dam. But yes, we need more water for Subanusori. And please don't forget, most of the water we use must be retreated before it goes back to the environment. That's where the wastewater services come in, the sewerage services, commonly known. The treatment plant is fully stretched. The Kinoya wastewater treatment plant is struggling. We already started some infrastructure upgrades in that area, and we will continue to do that. And now, around the Subanusori corridor, you cannot develop a property unless it's connected to a sewer line. So there's a whole lot of demand in that area as well. People are saying, hey, Water Authority, lay the sewer pipes on our street. We want to develop this thing, but we can't. The Suba City Council will not approve it. So we have our part to play. And there's a lot of investment needed in that area as well. We've just commissioned the Samambula one and the one in Domain to get people connected to the sewer lines. And we would like to grow that area as well in Turek and in Rewa Street. All these areas still have septic tanks. We want to connect them to the wastewater line. To do that, Kinoya must be upgraded because they'll be receiving all this wastewater and treat it before we let it out in the environment. So when we talk about water infrastructure development, you must be mindful that the wastewater side of things need to develop as well, because this water comes back after you use it. It comes down the sink or you flush it down the toilet. We need to treat it and send it back to the environment. So in the past, this area was neglected, right? So we're doing a lot of water infrastructure upgrades, and you will see the coverage of wastewater is around just 30 to 40%, which is very low, whereas water is sitting in the high 80s. We need to bring this up as well.
So when you say the Kinoya treatment plant is stretched, how is its operations affected? How is the treatment of wastewater affected? What happens then?
Well, the treatment is, the process is overloaded, so it affects the capability to treat the wastewater. right? So we need to put in place more structures in there and more treatment processes to be able to cater for the load that's coming in. Otherwise, we're damaging the environment too. It's not good. And then
That's exactly what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get at. If the system is stretched and the consumers are using water just as much, and there's just as much or even more wastewater coming through,
Yeah.
and the system is stretched, are we in a situation where the Kinoya treatment plant may be letting out water into the environment that hasn't been fully treated? Is that the situation right now?
In some days of the week, yes, especially when it's overloaded with the industry as well. See, industries when they do manufacturing, they are byproducts, and obviously some of these are liquid. We call liquid trade waste. And some of these industries, they are just connecting to the wastewater system and flushing everything down. And so you all sorts of chemicals coming down to our treatment plant in Kinoa. You have the cafes and restaurants who just pour the grease and the oil down the sink. And this all comes to Kinoa, and it affects the treatment process. That is why we're wanting the trade waste policy implemented so that the industries take ownership of their waste, have some sort of pre-treatment before they put it into our network. And all these things increase the loading, what we term as the loading capacity to treat, or the capability to treat. It's not only domestic sewage we're talking about, it's industrial sewage as well, which drastically increases the need to treat wastewater before we put it back to the environment. So yes, there are times when Kinoya is just overloaded, and if you go to Kinoya, there are times of the day we see all different colors of wastewater coming in. Sometimes it's just white, sometimes it's just red or black, and people are just flushing things down the sewers, from paint factories, from restaurants, from industries.
What sort of environmental impact are we talking about, Mr. Rave? I mean, I understand the system is stretched. It's not something that the water authority has caused to happen, but at the end of the day, you are saying that untreated water is going into the environment.
No, we treat it. We treat it to a level. We do primary and secondary treatment. We don't do tertiary treatment at the moment. That requires more investment. Where we actually, kill off all the bacteria before we send it back to the environment. Right now, we're just doing primary and secondary treatment. So it's a fairly good form of treatment, and then the outfall is way past the reef on Ladala Bay. But if we don't do something now, we will basically just polluting the environment, without treating it to safe levels, treating the wastewater to safe levels before discharging. So, I just like to make the point that when we do water infrastructure development, we must not neglect the wastewater side of things, because we need to collect this and treat it again before we disperse to the environment.
All right, let's take another break, and we'll be right back talking about water supply and wastewater issues. Goal FM, speak your mind. This is the last segment of the show. We're talking to Opetaya Ravai, having some very good discussions about water supply issues as well as wastewater treatment. We've talked quite a bit about it. I want to take you to a certain point in time. A few weeks back, there was an article saying that the water authority was supplying below standard water. Pipe water was not up to the level that it should be, and that it was worse than, if I can recall, Uganda. Now, you did come back and say that's not true. You denied that allegation. Can you explain to our viewers and to our listeners what sort of process is involved in purifying water before I fill up my glass and have a drink at home?
Okay, first of all, let me just clarify that issue. The report didn't actually mention Water Authority of Fiji water supply is not safe. It just mentioned that water in Fiji is not safe. Okay. Now we must look at it in the context where it was written. Now, why we came back strongly, because it implied that water supply through your taps is not safe. That's why we came back, just to reassure people why the water you're getting from your from your taps is treated. We got 44 water treatment plants. All of that water that is produced from these 44 water treatment plants is safe to drink. I want to reassure the people now and again. So the report was basically emanating from a sample that they took from a river, directly from a river somewhere in Ba. Now, obviously, there'll be bacteria in that when you consider the surrounding farming communities, perhaps, and the livestock. It's uncontrolled. So there would be high levels of bacteria in a river in that area. So, I just like to mention again that the water supplied from your taps is treated. It's safe for human consumption. And, we do this. We treat about 300 megaliters of water a day, supplying to over, almost 200,000 people. And it's safe. 700,000 people, are drinking that water. Every day. They're using it to cook. They're using it to wash their dishes and their pots and to wash themselves as well. And it's safe. So the report, it didn't mention exactly that water authority or pipe water is unsafe. We just implied by saying water in Fiji is worse than Uganda. I saw that report as well that they're referring to. There's no particular reference to Uganda, so that's a comment that particular person made personal to him, perhaps. It wasn't referring to a report.
Can you explain to us the technical process very quickly of how the water is actually treated?
Yeah. Okay. There's a few levels of processing happens in water treatment. Basically, when you take water from a river, the water that we supply you, where do you live?
Nasinu,
okay. Nasinu mostly, yes, it comes from Waila, right? It comes from Waimanu River. If you look at Waimanu River and you're going to take a glass from Waimanu River, you'd probably not want to drink it. It's so discolored, and there's a whole lot of bacteria in that sample. And this is what happened in that sample that they took directly from the river. Now we take that same water and we treat it. And there's various stages of treatment. We remove all the solids that are in there. That causes the color, and then we kill off the bacteria to safe levels, and then we supply it. So we first remove the solids, so the discoloration and all is removed, and then we treat it, we disinfect it, and then we supply it. So basically, that's the form of treatment that we do, and you get it from brown to clear.
Sometimes,
that's the process.
Sometimes when I open the tap at home, if I want to take a drink, and I open the tap and I fill up my glass, and it's fizzy and white.
Right. That's sometimes air gets into the pipe, so air just stirs up. It causes a milky sort of thing, but it's still safe. You can still drink it.
So it's not some sort of chlorination process. That's
no. Yeah.
Okay. The other issue that I wanted to talk to you about is rural water.
Yeah.
Given Fiji's location and our geography and the fact that we have outer islands as well,
right.
Huge mountains everywhere, supplying to rural communities has been a challenge.
Absolutely.
What options do you have for that? Because the water authority, while a commercial business, while you have to supply to your connected customers, you also have a greater role in ensuring pipe water around Fiji or safe drinking water all over Fiji.
You see, there are over 2,000 rural water supply schemes. Schemes which they supply from 100 to 500, maximum maybe 800 people, and these are isolated schemes on their own. We help build them, through government assistance. The self-help projects, the community gives 10%, and the government gives 90%, and we go in and implement them. Not only implement new systems, we also upgrade systems, and we also do community awareness. So all these rural supply schemes, we encourage the setup of a water committee, which must include a woman, and the committee should take ownership of the supplying system. Looking at the catchment areas, make sure there's no farming near the catchment areas, make sure they are cleaning the dam consistently. So it's a challenge, but it's government's obligation to get water to these people. In terms of full treatment, that's a challenge. To get it to all the 2,000 individual schemes. It's not impossible, but it's going to be a challenge and a huge undertaking in terms of financial commitment. Not only for the installation of treatment systems, but also the maintenance of this. So right now, in some rural schemes, we put in low tech just filtration treatment. There's no full treatment like we have in Waila and Tamavua. So currently, we this year there's 50 rural projects. 25 are completed, so the other 25 will be completed at the end of this month. And government allocates around $3 to $4 million annually for the installation and upgrades of rural systems. And yes, it's a challenge, but again, for the government of the day, any government for that matter, I think it should be a continuing commitment by government to help the people in the rural areas.
Let's talk about Levuka for a moment. One of the outer island areas that Water Authority is committed to supplying. I understand there's been no rain on the island for quite a while. What's the situation on Levuka?
Yeah, not only Levuka but in other parts of the country. There's been very little rain. But in Levuka in particular, we've just been informed last week, and we're monitoring the situation now. Some of our sources in Levuka are drying up. So we're cutting water from other systems, other sources to places like the PEFCO factory and other customers around Levuka town. So it's no cause of alarm yet, but some sources are drying up due to the lack of rainfall at the catchment areas.
All right. Well, with that, Mr. Ravai, we've basically come to the end of our show. I'd like to thank you for coming in, and it's been good discussions. We've covered quite a few issues, and I hope that our viewers at home and our listeners have a better understanding of what's going on at the Water Authority of Fiji and what the long-term goal is. And I think we've achieved that. We've done that quite well. Mr. Ravai. That brings us to the end of Speak Your Mind for this week. I'm Edwin Nand. Goodbye.